Hi. So we have seen Socrates implying that his most dangerous accusers of impiety and corruption are not Anytus and Meletus, but the common opinions against him and his way of life held by the citizens of Athens. They seem to have come about because Socrates went around revealing that people don't know what they claim to know, and especially because he revealed the ignorance of leaders the people followed and adored, men who seem to have held leadership positions at least partly because they flattered the people by agreeing with their prejudices. As if to show that the poet Meletus is not the real threat, at a certain point Socrates calls him up and questions him in front of everyone, easily getting him to foolishly contradict himself by saying that Socrates is atheist and that he believes in a god that he introduces into the city. While this may be a strong rational argument against the accusations, it must also remind the jury of how disrespectful and annoying Socrates was in their eyes. While it is easy to destroy Meletus in reasoned argument, the shadows, the slanders and envy of the many, and their effect on others by the force of rumor remain strong. Socrates says that if someone were to ask him if he were ashamed of his behavior, he would say that he was acting as nobly as Achilles. It was his duty to the city's god Apollo, and he would die before shirking it. He goes on to assert to the jury that although he would like to live, his duty to the god would compel him to refuse to obey them if they let him go on the condition that he not philosophize. At 29d and D to E, he says, I, men of Athens, salute you and love you, but I will obey the god rather than you, and as long as I breathe and am able to, I will certainly not stop philosophizing, and I will exhort you and explain this to whomever of you I happen to meet, and I will speak just the sorts of things I am accustomed to. Best of men, you are an Athenian, from the city that is greatest and best reputed for wisdom and strength. Are you not ashamed that you care for having as much money as possible and reputation and honor, but that you neither care for nor give thought to prudence and truth and how your soul will be the best possible? Every city is flawed, including Athens, but Athens is perhaps less flawed than most, and Socrates loves it. So he will bend a long way toward Athens. But finally there's a line he will not, cannot cross. He characterizes this line more succinctly later when he says that the unexamined life is not worth living for a human being. That's at 38a. The implied insult to those in the jury who don't live examined lives cannot be missed by them. Socrates goes on to explain the necessity of the city's error, but in the process he only aggravates its anger. Athens hates him because it is ignorant and blind. It cannot see that his philosophizing is a great benefit to the city. He claims to improve the city by exhorting citizens to virtue. He, in fact, implies that he is God's gift to Athens. He does not even defend himself in his own interest, but in theirs. So at 30d to 31a, on page 82, he says, So I, men of Athens, am now far from making a defense speech on my own behalf, as someone might suppose. I do it rather on your behalf, so that you do not do something wrong concerning the gift of the god to you by voting to condemn me. For if you kill me, you will not easily discover another of my sort who, even if it is rather ridiculous to say, has simply been set upon the city by the god, as though upon a great and well-born horse who is rather sluggish because of his great size and needs to be awakened by some gadfly. Just so, in fact, the god seems to me to have set me upon the city as someone of this sort. I awaken and persuade and reproach each one of you, and I do not stop settling down everywhere upon you the whole day. So again, the familiar situation. Athens despises Socrates. Athens needs Socrates. Socrates says that he realized long ago that if he did his questioning in a public context, he would be killed. At 31c to 32a on page 83, he says, this is by way of explaining why he was not openly active as a political man. Perhaps then it might seem strange that I do go around counseling these things and being a busybody in private, but that in public I do not dare go up before your multitude to counsel the city. The cause of this is what you have heard me speak of many times and in many places, that something divine and daimonic comes to me, a voice, which of course is also what Meletus wrote about in the indictment, making a comedy over it. This is something which began for me in childhood. A sort of voice comes, and whenever it comes, it always turns me away from whatever I am about to do, but never turns me forward. This is what opposes my political activity, and its opposition seems to me altogether noble. For know well, men of Athens, if I had long ago attempted to be politically active, I would long ago have perished, and I would have benefited neither you nor myself. For there is no human being who will preserve his life if he genuinely opposes either you or any other multitude, and prevents many unjust and unlawful things from happening in the city. Near the end of his defense, Socrates admits to the jury that he knows what to say to get acquitted. If he grovels and begs and brings his crying family, the jury will let him go. He will not do it, because it is not true and it is not beautiful. In the end, for a person ruled by the mind, truth and beauty are more important than life. Truth and beauty guide the examined life that is the only one worth living for a true human being, in his view. He says it this way on page 38d. I have been convicted because I was at a loss, not however for speeches, but for daring and shamelessness and willingness to say the sorts of things to you that you would have been most pleased to hear, me wailing and lamenting and doing and saying many other things unworthy of me, as I affirm, such things as you have been accustomed to hear from others. But neither did I then suppose that I should do anything unsuitable to a free man because of the danger, nor do I now regret that I made my defense speech like this. I much prefer to die having made my defense speech in this way than to live in that way. Better dead and noble than alive and despicable. We can hardly help comparing this attitude of Socrates toward both common opinion and death to the attitude of Ivan Ilyich, whom we read about last week and before. The city does not care that it is not true or beautiful. They only require that Socrates humiliate himself. The city would break its own laws and acquit him if he would just succumb. Like a child, the city is too ignorant and inconsistent to hold to even the principles it claims are sacred. The jury finds Socrates guilty. When asked to recommend a punishment, Socrates instead recommends what he believes he deserves: free meals from the city with the Olympic champions. He says, quote, I am not accustomed to deem myself worthy of anything bad. This is not put forth by Plato as vanity, but rather as an accurate account of Socrates' excellence. Socrates has immense self-respect that the city cannot touch. The source of his self-respect is somehow beyond or above the cave of the city. But the city sees this as vanity. It infuriates the city. And so the jury chooses death for Socrates. The poets have succeeded in getting the city to destroy the philosopher. But Socrates foretells that this story is not over. At 39c to d, on page 93 and 4, he says, After this I desire to deliver oracles to you, O you who voted to condemn me. For in fact I am now where human beings particularly deliver oracles, when they are about to die. I affirm, you men who condemned me to death, that vengeance will come upon you right after my death, and much harsher, by Zeus, than the sort you give me by killing me. For you have now done this deed supposing that you will be released from giving an account of your life. But it will turn out much the opposite for you, as I affirm. There will be more who will refute you, whom I have now been holding back. You did not perceive them. And they will be harsher inasmuch as they are younger. And you will be more indignant. For if you suppose that by killing human beings you will prevent someone from reproaching you for not living correctly, you do not think nobly. Here we can hardly help but think of Plato. In writing such a book as this one in our hands, did not Plato the philosopher provide the greatest defense of Socrates' way of life against Athens and all political societies? Indeed, didn't he at least partially take the place of the poets and statesmen behind the wall, providing new shadows and a new story that honors knowledge, thus reforming our culture, our cave, making it safe for philosophy? After this, does not Socrates actually replace Achilles, to a great extent, as the hero of our civilization? Thank you.